In 1981, a respected science journal called a book by a Cambridge biologist the best candidate for burning there had been for many years. Burning. Not a tabloid, not a blog. An actual learned publication suggesting we set fire to a book. So what on earth did Rupert Sheldrake write that got everyone so riled up? Here it is. He suggested the laws of nature might not be fixed, eternal rules carved into reality. They might just be habits. And here's the kicker. If nature has habits, then nature has a memory. The past isn't gone. It's somehow still here, and things can tune into it. He called this morphic resonance, and stick with me, because the experiments are where it gets properly strange. So, what does morphic resonance actually mean in plain English? Picture this. A rat in London learns to crack a tricky maze. Now take a rat in Sydney. It has never met that London rat. It never will. Sheldrake's idea says it should still learn the same maze a bit quicker. Not because anything traveled between them, because they're resonating with a pattern that already happened. Think of a tuning fork. Ping one, and another one across the room starts humming the same note without anyone touching it. That's the flavor of it. Same idea with crystals. Once a brand new compound crystallizes for the first time anywhere, the next batch should form more easily all over the world. Sounds barmy, I know. But Sheldrake didn't just sit in an armchair stroking his beard. He ran experiments, ones you could repeat yourself. And the first one involves a dog. Meet JT. Between 1994 and 2000, Sheldrake filmed this dog more or less constantly. The setup was dead simple. JT's owner, Pam, would head out at random times. A camera stayed on the dog to clock when he trotted over to the window to wait. Now, if the dog was just getting anxious, you'd expect him to drift to the window more and more as the hours dragged on. That's not what happened. JT planted himself at that window right when Pam decided to come home and started her journey back. Not when she arrived. When she made the decision to set off. And it held up when she came back at random times, in different cars, by different routes. Distance didn't matter. How she traveled didn't matter. The thing that seemed to matter was her intention to come home. Over 200 trials, JT spent about 55% of his time at the window when Pam was actually on her way. When she was out but not heading back, 4%. 4. Now, I'll be honest with you. These results are still argued over. The stats, the controls, all of it. But sit with that gap for a second. 55 versus 4. Then Sheldrake went after something you've definitely felt. You think of a mate, and seconds later, your phone goes, and it's them. Coincidence, right? So he tested it. 4 possible callers, picked at random, and you have to guess who it is before you pick up. Pure chance you'd get it right one time in 4, 25%. Across more than 850 trials with 65 people, the average was 42%. That's not a little wobble. That's a pattern sitting there that flatly shouldn't exist. And it got stronger between people who were close. Mums and their kids, best friends, partners. The bond mattered more than the distance. There's more. That prickle on the back of your neck when someone's staring at you? He tested that too. People sat with their backs turned, while someone either stared or looked away, decided at random. Folks guessed right about 60% of the time, where chance says 50. And that one's been replicated thousands of times by independent researchers in schools and universities. Quick favor before we dive in. If this sort of thing is your cup of tea, give the video a thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people stumble across it. And subscribe so the next one finds you. Right, on we go. Now, the scientific establishment did not take this well. Nature's editor John Maddox called the book an exercise in pseudoscience and wondered aloud whether the Royal Society should ever have backed Sheldrake's early work. But here's the bit that genuinely made me sit up. A psychologist called Richard Wiseman set out to debunk the dog. Tested JT, said there was nothing there. And when Sheldrake went through Wiseman's own data, the dog still went to the window way more when Pam was on her way home. Same dog, Same numbers, opposite conclusions, which leaves you with a genuinely uncomfortable thought. When two scientists stare at the identical data and walk away believing opposite things, what's really being tested? The idea or how willing each one was to accept it. Now, the obvious objection, and it's a fair one, morphic resonance is slippery to pin down. If an experiment flops, a believer can say the field just wasn't strong enough. If it works, a skeptic can cry coincidence. A theory that survives any result predicts nothing. Fair. But remember, quantum entanglement looked impossible too. Particles affecting each other across a room seemed absurd, until the experiments kept coughing up the same weird answer and the textbooks had to bend. Sheldrake's been picked apart for over 40 years now. Some results positive, some negative. But something keeps turning up in the data that simply shouldn't be there if these fields are nonsense. And here's where it stretches a bit further than the lab. If memory really can live in a shared field, rather than being locked in one place, then your brain might be less of a hard drive and more of a radio, tuning in rather than storing everything itself. It would explain why, after decades of looking, nobody can find where a specific memory actually sits in the brain. It might even explain why the same invention pops up in two separate countries in the same week. Not magic, just a pattern, once laid down, becoming that bit easier for the next mind to find. You don't have to swallow any of this whole, but you can watch for it. Notice when you think of someone right before they ring. Notice when a new skill feels less like learning and more like remembering. Sheldrake gave that feeling a name. Whether the name lasts or not, the thing it points at hasn't gone anywhere. If you want the full story, the experiments, the feud, and where it all leads, the whole thing is waiting for you at consciousnesspartnership.com.